Welcome to English 4E. This is grade 12 English workplace level. We are in term 1B and this is class number 2. We are going to be working on key question 3, which is about nouns and verbs, and key question 4, which is about pronouns and antecedents. It is the year 2025-26. This is Jillian Percy and today is Wednesday, November 12th. Here are all the ways to contact us. The studio number is 1-800-465-7144. Keep in mind that if you call and talk to me while I'm on the air, it will be available on the radio. The office number is 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. I have 2 emails. The main one I use is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca, or I also use jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. Some people like to talk to me on Facebook. My Facebook handle is gpercywasa. YouTube is also the same, gpercywasa. There is also a school channel called Wasa Distance Education YouTube channel. And either one of those 2 channels will have the classes. We record them and save them and post them on there. And there will be the classes from last year as well. So the most common question I get is, how do I hand in my assignments? So you can send them directly to me, but whenever you do that, I just send them along to our assignment email. All assignments from all teachers go to the same one, studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way, if something were to happen to a teacher, gets sick or something, anyone's got access to it that might need to mark it. And the secretary logs that you submitted the work, and that goes into the database, so it's recorded. When you are handing work in, please make sure that physically on the assignment you have printed or typed your full name, the course name, the assignment number, and name. If it's in a writing assignment and it asks you for a rough draft, a good draft, a revised draft, make sure you label it, okay? They get marked differently and are often worth a different amount of marks, so I need to know what I'm doing with that. There are multiple ways to hand in assignments. I think we're still in rotating postal strikes. I would not use the mail regardless. It's pretty slow. If you have a learning center in your community, you can give it to the DEC. They should have a scanner. They'll scan it in and they can email it to me. Hang on to your originals. Do not throw them out. You will need them for an assignment at the end of the unit, okay? You can also fax it to me, 1-800-463-7852. That is in Ontario, or 1-877-990-2023. That is in the rest of Canada. Let me know that you're planning to fax it, and I will turn on the fax machine because we kind of keep it in sleep mode. If you live in town, you're welcome to just bring the assignments by the office. If you like to do your work on the computer, type it up and then email it to me as an attachment. Some people like to use Google Docs, which is great, and they want to share documents. Remember that you can download it as well, but if you like to share, that's fine. But you have to remember to allow me to view it and edit it. Otherwise, I can't see it and I can't print it. You also should include the student work email. I can't forward that because you are the one that gives permission for that. So it helps everybody around along if you include both me and the student work into it. A lot of people who do their assignments in handwriting send it in to me by taking photographs. And then they send the photographs through Facebook or through email. When you're doing that, only take a picture of 1 page at a time. If you try to take 2 at a time, I just find it's too small. And even when I zoom in, it just becomes all pixelated and I can't really read it. Make sure that your writing is not blurry. Don't tilt the phone at an odd angle when taking the photographs, or I'll get one really small, tiny end and then one really fat end, and it's quite hard to read. Make sure you send it as an attachment rather than just sharing it as an email. For whatever reason, it prints off a lot better. And then if you want to, you can use a scanner app. I use Adobe Scan. There's lots of little videos out there. I'm not going to go through that again, but it's a way easier way to do it, okay? All right. I usually include a weekly planner, so you've got an idea what I'm planning to cover. This week we didn't have school yesterday, And as you know, there's a lot of power outages today, and so you may have missed some earlier classes, but luckily power came back on for us. So we are kind of jumping around a little in the unit a little bit. I'm going to talk about that later, but we are actually going to skip over question 1 and 2 and go to question 3 and 4, and I will discuss why in a second. So here is last year's cover, which a lot of people I know probably still have. It's fine to keep on working with that if you want to. This is this year's cover. So this is what we're working on right now, okay? This unit is really focusing on the building blocks of writing, understanding and identifying parts of speech, understanding and identifying the parts of a sentence, knowing how to write a simple sentence, compound or complex sentence, understanding how to get subject-verb agreement or pronoun antecedent agreement, and basically writing sentences and writing paragraphs. That's the main focus. All right, this is the table of contents. Right now, they're listing things as activities, but because the rest of the classes use lessons, I'm slowly transitioning that over to lessons. It doesn't really matter just in terms of how they're grouping it. So just don't worry if I'm saying lessons and you're like, I don't see a lesson in there. It will eventually say that at one point. Each assignment is referred to as a key question, and the format is there's a bunch of reading material and then there's the question. I've noticed that sometimes people like to just kind of skip all the reading and dive into the question, but usually the question is bare bones and it doesn't usually give you enough information to do the assignment if you haven't done all the reading. So I strongly encourage you don't skip the reading, okay? All right, course overview. This full credit course emphasizes the consolidation of literacy, communication, and critical and creative thinking skills necessary for success in the workplace and in daily life. You will read and analyze informational, graphic, and literary texts, and create oral, written, and media texts in a variety of formats for workplace-related and practical purposes. An important focus will be on using language accurately and organizing ideas and information coherently. The course is intended to prepare you for the workplace and active citizenship. So when they're saying citizenship, they mean you should be able to read a newspaper and understand what's going on in the country or your province and understand political news, elections. You should be able to fill out legal forms and medical forms. You should be able to file your taxes. All those kind of things just are part of being alive and living in a country, essentially. All right, there are 4 units to this course. The first one is called Elements of Written Communication, and it really focuses on writing. Second one is Literature and Media. Third one is Forms of Communication and Success in the Workplace. And then Unit 4 is some more emphasis on workplace writing. Now, this actually says that you have to complete a final exam. That isn't actually true. I do have an alternate final project that is available because I know not everybody is in a place where they could get the exam supervised. So that is there as an option. And also, if you just would prefer to do it rather than the exam, I'm fine with that too. It doesn't really matter. So the coursework is weighted, which I think we talked about before, but in case you're not sure, that means I don't add everything up and then divide it equally and create an average. Certain things are worth more of your mark. So all the coursework that we're doing is worth about 70% of your overall mark. Then there's a culminating activity where you're putting together a workplace portfolio. That is worth 10% of your overall mark. And then the final exam or the final project will be worth 20% of your overall mark. Now, for Unit 2, you need Where the Rivers Meet. And I talked about this, I think, on Monday, but just in case I didn't, that novel has gone out of print and it's becoming quite hard for us to get. I do still have some copies, but there's a good chance by the end of the year I might run out. So I will be writing an alternate version of Unit 2 so that when we do run out of those, people can use that instead. By the end of this course, probably the last week or two, I'll do the new version of that. I'm not going to do it right now because, quite frankly, it's not written right now. Culminating activities are an essential component of the course. Sometimes people want to skip it. It's really hard to skip it and still pass. Unless you are an A student all the way through, it's pretty tricky to do, okay? Yep, talked about that. Okay, so this is the overall unit, not just today's lesson. We're really going to be talking about the importance of effective writing. You're going to complete a variety of assignments pertaining to the parts of speech, involving spelling, grammar, punctuation. The writing process is going to be examined and its use in producing good quality pieces of writing. And for a culminating activity, you will write a short story. So there are 5 lessons, and each lesson has several assignments. The first lesson is really focusing on the parts of speech, okay? So for each assignment where we discuss certain parts of speech, I'm expecting you to know the definition, be able to identify some examples either independently or in sentences, and then be able to use what you just understood to create sentences that use those parts of speech. All right. All right. So this is kind of more specific. This is student-friendly language for the expectation. So I don't just get to like, woohoo, here's what I want to teach, right? The government says, hey, anyone who's teaching this all across Ontario, here are the goals that you have to teach. Now, I'm putting it into student-friendly language, but whether you're taking this course in Toronto or Windsor or Thunder Bay, these are still the goals, okay? We might give a different assignment for it, but everybody has to teach these goals, all right? I will learn the definitions and some examples of parts of speech in order to identify them and use them correctly. I can identify a topic, a purpose, and an audience for my writing. I can create, explore, and expand on ideas for a writing assignment. I can organize my ideas for writing by ordering them in an appropriate way for a procedural paragraph. I can write incomplete sentences that communicate my meaning clearly and accurately and use smooth and logical transition words and phrases. I can use my knowledge of commonly confused words and common spelling errors to correct my work. I understand and use periods, question marks, exclamation marks, and commas correctly in my sentences. And I can use my knowledge of parts of speech and how they work in a sentence to communicate my ideas. Okay, there's going to be 4 main assignments in lesson 1. So don't worry about too much of the lesson 1. I just kind of a way for me to organize it. Worry more about the key question because that is not going to change from your version to my version, okay? Now, not every assignment in this lesson is going to meet every single one of those learning goals, but by the time we're finished all 4 assignments, all those goals should have been covered, okay? Now, usually you'll see a little screen like this that says success criteria. That will tell you how to know whether you've met their learning goals. In other words, whether you're doing well on understanding the work and doing well on creating good assignments that will get you good marks, okay? Now, why bother with the reading material? The main reason is the reading material that appears before each assignment explains the concepts. It gives examples. It usually provides practice material. All of this is happening so that you will be successful once you get to the actual work. Okay? I know sometimes people are a little bit mixed up by this, but they'll say like, I don't understand. And then I'll say, well, did you read, page 3 to 7? And they'll be like, no. Okay, well, if you go back and read that, then you won't be confused. Okay? So if were a regular class, you wouldn't walk in the door and your teacher would just hand you a paper and then sit down, right? She would talk, explain things. Maybe you'd watch a video, maybe you'd do some partner work, and then they would give you an assignment. So the reading in the book is kind of the same thing. And if you don't want to read it, that's okay. Then you can just listen to the class instead because all the information is here in the class as well. Probably even a little bit more. So everything that you need to know is usually before the assignment. The assignment is like the last sentence. It's not the whole explanation. Okay, I am changing the order because I think they've started off with a really tough question. So I've kind of changed it to an easier question. So in your book, you'll have key question 1, where you review all the parts of speech, Key question 2, where you create a procedural paragraph. Key question 3, where you do nouns and verbs. And then key question 4, which is about antecedents and pronouns. So basically, we're going to do key question 3, which is about nouns and verbs, because that's just 2 parts of speech. And then we're going to move on to pronouns and their antecedents, which is key question 4. Then we'll do a review of all the parts of speech. And then finally, hang on a second, number 2, this one will, we put everything we know into writing a paragraph. Okay, sorry, somehow that did it twice. Okay, now, if you want to do it in order, that's fine. It doesn't matter. It's just this is how I think is probably easier. All right, hang on a second. I can't talk and type at the same time. There we go. Okay, so the big idea, parts of speech. Every word in a sentence has a job to do or can be split into a category, okay? Traditionally, there are thought to be 9, sometimes people will say 8 main jobs in a sentence. Those categories or jobs are nouns, pronouns, verbs, articles, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And each one of these parts of speech has its own definition based on the function of the word in the sentence. Many of these main categories can be broken down into smaller categories with more specific roles. It's just like in science where you can take a large category of animals such as cats or felines, you can break it down into smaller categories such as lions, leopards, jaguars, lynx, house cats, but they're all still part of the bigger group of cats. Same thing, okay? So we are starting off with talking about nouns. English is a very noun-heavy language. That is not true of all languages, but it is very true for English. Nouns are essentially a naming word. It can be the name of a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Those are considered nouns. Here are some examples for each category. People could be things like a doctor, a sister, friend. Places, town, a river, a gym. Things, tree, pencil, couch. Animals are often included under things, which bugs some people, but like dogs, cats are also considered a thing, mainly because they're not people and they're not places. So it's kind of the catch-all category. Ideas and concepts are the tricky one. Things like hatred is an idea or a concept. Government, freedom. Those are also nouns. All the examples I've listed there are called common nouns. That means that they're just the generic version. We also have proper nouns that are the actual name of a person, place, or thing, and they will always start with a capital letter to show that. So for example, the common noun is boy, but if your name was Stephen, then I put a big S there to show that's your actual name, but they're both nouns. Mountain, small m, Mount Everest, big M, big E. Actor, any actor, right? I'm not being specific there. Ryan Reynolds, that's a specific name of an actor, and I use capitals on his first name and his last name to show that he's it's the name. Country, any country, right? It's generic. Or I could be talking about Canada, which is a proper noun and it so has a capital C. Car, could be talking about any car, that's a common noun. But I could be talking specifically about a Honda Accord. That would be a proper noun. Okay? It's not that important other than I find sometimes people don't recognize proper nouns because they're like, oh, that's a name. And so they think it's like a different category, but it's not. Ideas are the hardest nouns to recognize because they're a bit abstract. A lot of the other ones you can kind of visualize, like I can picture a guy, I can picture a car. It's hard to picture an idea, okay? One thing to think about is the word basically naming a thing rather than describing it or explaining an action? If it's giving you the name of a concept, an idea, an emotion, it's generally a noun. So here are some examples, some scientific ideas, things like photosynthesis, gravity, force, flexibility, those are all nouns. Emotions, hatred, sadness, excitement, curiosity. Now those are tricky because if I said hate, Hate isn't, it's the action of hating, I guess. I could be, nope, the other ones are all kind of more like adjectives. Government. Um, any name for a type of government would be a noun. Democracy, communism, socialism, monarchy, anarchy. Geographical words, latitude, longitude, equator, time zone. History words, confederation, rebellion, exploration, war. This is a sampling. This is by no means, I could not possibly give you all the nouns. I would need an entire dictionary. Now, there is one special type of noun that is a little bit confusing, but I'm putting it in here. Keep in mind, you do not have to use this special type of noun in our assignment. If you find it confusing, just skip it. I'm just putting it in there because I know some people are aware of this and I want to kind of discuss it to make sure we're all on the same page about this. Gerunds are a noun that uses a verb plus the ing ending as the name of an activity. So for example, they might say running is my favorite exercise. Now they're not actually running at the moment they're talking about that. They're describing the concept of running or the idea of running. That's different from when we're using a verb to describe somebody performing an action. So if I said he is running from a bear, it's not a noun because I'm telling you what he's doing. He's doing some running. Here are some other examples where we're using the gerunds. Hiking is a great activity for your health. Her favorite hobby is sewing. I try to reserve a few hours each Saturday for golfing. Okay, so normally when you see the ing, it tends to be a verb, but in these special cases, it's being used as a name instead. And so in that case, it's being used as a noun. Now, you can completely ignore this for this assignment. I just wanted to make sure you guys had that just in case. Some other nouns that are really tricky for people to recognize, for some reason, and I don't know why this is, I've noticed that a lot of times units of time students don't seem to recognize as a type of noun. So seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, seasons, years, decades, centuries, those are all nouns. So if I said November, November is a noun. If I talked about Monday, Monday is a noun, okay? The other one would be what we call collective nouns, and those are nouns that are referring to a group of something. So if I say a flock of birds, flock is a noun, and weirdly, the of birds is kind of also a noun. This is our main one. The of birds one is acting as an adjective that's describing it, but birds is still actually a noun. A herd of cows. Herd and cows are both nouns. A school of fish. School and fish are both nouns. A pack of wolves. Pack and wolves are both nouns. Crowd of people. Crowd and people are both nouns. Carton of eggs. Carton eggs are both nouns. A fleet of ships. Fleet and ships are both nouns. And bouquet and flowers. Okay. Nouns can be anywhere in the sentence. It could be the subject and perform the action. Like if I said Nancy swam, she's the one doing everything. Nouns could be a direct object in a sentence and be the one that received the action. If I said he threw the ball, ball is a noun. Nouns can be an indirect object in a sentence and receive the direct object. If I said John threw Maggie the ball, John's a noun, Maggie's a noun, and ball is a noun. There are other jobs that nouns can perform in a sentence, but we'll talk about that. The thing to keep in mind is that many sentences have more than one noun in them. Sometimes people will find one and feel like they're done, but that's not the case, okay? So we're going to kind of do a little practice here. Can you find the nouns in the sentences below? I am going to let you take a look at that for a quick second while I take a quick drink of water here. All right, I'm assuming you guys have found the first one. The leaves are falling from the tree in our yard. Okay. Leaves, right? Those are a thing. Falling from the tree. The tree is a thing. In our yard. Yard could be a thing or we could call it a place. Cars zoomed down the busy street. All right, well, a car is a thing. Street probably would be a place. The doctor said he would do the surgery at his office. So doctor would be a person. Surgery, you could call that like an idea or a concept, I think. Office would be a place. The old haunted house at the top of the hill had lights shining through the windows. This is a tricky one. It has a lot of nouns. Okay. House is the first one. It's a place. Now here's the tricky one. Top is a noun and so is hill, right? The top of the hill. Had lights. Lights are also a noun. They're another type of object or thing. Through the windows, another thing. Those are all the thing category. Freedom is a key component in democracy. Okay, now those are all abstract nouns. We got freedom, that's an idea. Component, okay, kind of like a part. Democracy, democracy is another type of noun. Briefly, we're going to talk about these more later, but nouns versus pronouns. Sometimes we use pronouns to replace a noun in a sentence. We often are doing that because we're trying to keep from having to repeat the same word over and over again, which can get annoying. If I'm writing a paragraph or even a story about a guy named David, and I use his name every single time I'm talking about him, after a while, you're going to get really tired of hearing me say David, 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 David. So we end up using he instead, right? There are actually several different types of pronouns, depending on the job the noun was doing in the sentence. There are subject pronouns, object pronouns, reflexive pronouns, possessive pronouns, indefinite pronouns, and relative pronouns. Some examples of pronouns are things like I, you, he, she, it, we, they, him, her, our, me, or yourself. Now, because a pronoun is often referring to a person, place, or thing, sometimes people will think, oh, well, they count as a noun, but they aren't. They're in English, they're considered a different category. So for the assignment, do not underline any pronouns, just the nouns. So if I look at the first sentence there, he popped the balloon with a sharp needle. Am I going to underline he? No, because it's not a noun, it's replacing a noun, so I don't need that one. The balloon, balloon's a noun, and a needle is a noun. Dr. Brown told his patient that he had cancer. So Dr. Brown is one noun, it's the guy's name. Patient, I'm not going to use he though. It's not a noun, it's a pronoun. Cancer is the name of the disease. The television in the other room was playing loudly in the corner. This one weirdly doesn't have any pronouns. Television, room, corner. The large oak tree had broken its branches during the storm. Now, there is a pronoun here for its. Hopefully you don't circle that. Tree, sure. Branches, sure. Storm, sure. Sorry. I'm trying to be careful. Don't do like that and I think that you're going all of it because you'll lose marks, okay? If something like that happens, hang on, let me. Oh, wait, where's no. Hang on. Sorry, I thought that was an eraser. Okay, it is. Yeah. So if you go like and do a big long smear like I just did, go back and kind of carefully, you can kind of sort of cup it, you see, so you know where it's going to go. If you include more words, I'm going to be not clear whether you actually recognize nouns or not, okay? Okay, the other thing to keep in mind is nouns can be singular or plural. Singular just means that there's only one of the nouns. So like cup, girl, table, house, bush, or city. Plural means there's more than one. Cups, girls, tables, houses, bushes, cities. In English, we normally add an S to the end of a word to show there's more than one. However, there's a few exceptions to that. If the noun already ends in an SE kind of sound, then we add ES instead and we pronounce it as. So that would apply to words that end in SS or SH, like sh, or CH, ch, or ZZ, zzz. So we'd say glass, one glass, or three glasses, one bush, or five bushes. I made one lunch. I made four lunches for my brothers. Uh, I hear a buzz on my phone. I hear a whole bunch of buzzes from all the phones, right? So it sounds a little bit different. If a noun ends in a Y, then the Y is changed to I and we add ES. It will still sound like as. So city becomes cities, lady becomes ladies, baby becomes babies, fairy becomes fairies, and lily becomes lilies. Now, I was talking this over with somebody just the other night, and I realized there was some confusion because they gave me the example of the word tray. And I thought, okay, well, you're right. It does end in a Y, but here's the difference. This Y is actually acting as a vowel. Tray is working as a team with a Y. So I wouldn't take it out. I wouldn't do this. Hang on a second. If I did this, nobody would know what word I'm doing. So there's a few sort of vowel teams in English. And again, I know phonics kind of went out of fashion for a while, so I don't know if people learned this, okay? It's a big thing when I was a kid, but I was a kid many, many moons ago. So AY is a team. OY can be a team. Sometimes you will see EY as a team. It doesn't show up very often, but like gray or pray. Um, You're not going to see IY very often, and you're going to see UY very rarely. Uh, Guy, by, it's not a common one. But when it's right next to a vowel, those ones aren't going to change. This Y is coming after a consonant, right? You guys know what I mean when I say a consonant, right? Vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Consonants are all the other letters. All right. If a noun ends in an F, we change it to VES when it becomes plural. This is kind of one of those weird things from English. I think we actually borrow this from either Norse or Germanic or something. That's why it's kind of weird. It's not part of our main language. Wolf will become wolves. Wife becomes wives. Leaf becomes leaves. Knife becomes knives. Shelf becomes shelves. Self becomes selves. There's not a whole lot of words in English, but when you see the F at the end, you can't just add an S. For some reason, we changed the F to a V. Now, there are also some nouns that are made plural in an irregular way. And again, it's usually because we've borrowed the word from another language. English is huge for borrowing words from other languages. It's kind of why English can be a very confusing language to learn. So man in plural becomes men. Woman becomes women. Child becomes children. Ox becomes oxen. Mouse becomes mice. There are probably a few more, but there's not a whole lot. Just be aware of them. One thing you could do if you're trying to find nouns is to be aware singular nouns must have an article in front of them. And there are only three articles, a, an, the. A or an are used to refer to a general or indefinite noun. For example, a girl, a car, a river, a mountain, right? Not any specific one, just kind of generally. There was a girl walking across the road. I saw a car run the red light. We use an when the noun starts with a vowel. And it's basically so that we don't have the thing where we have two vowels next to each other in English. because it can sound kind of awkward. So instead of saying a apple, we say an apple, an engine, an insect, an octopus, an umbrella. The word the is used to show that you're referring to a specific person, place, or thing. Like he got in the car. Usually when we're saying that, we mean, our car, the car would be no. He found the dog, like not any dog, but the dog that he was looking for. Plural nouns do not need an article in front of them. You cannot use a or an with a plural noun because a or an means there's one of something. You can use the, like the apples or the blueberries. She ate all the blueberries. That's fine. Okay. Oh, hang on. Okay, so I am going to start talking about verbs because this assignment talks about both of them. All right. If we don't get through all of this, don't worry, I will finish up tomorrow. Seems to be taking me longer to talk my way through this than I would have thought. Okay, so verbs are words that show action or show the state or condition that a noun is in. There are three main types of verbs in English. There are action words. These are the most obvious and the easiest ones to recognize. Things like run, jump, sing, laugh, fish, hunt, dance, cook, sleep, work, walked, thought, said. The boy ran down the road. The dog is going to sleep. The man worked at the mine. Some examples of verbs that describe the state or condition of something are things like am, is, are, was, were, has, had, have, do, did, seem, or become. I always think of these ones as words that are hard to picture. I can picture somebody running or laughing or singing or fishing. I can't picture somebody ising or aring, right? There isn't anything they're doing. They're just existing. So that's what we're saying. It's the state or their condition. Usually we're using it when we're describing something like, I am sad. So am is the verb, but we're basically describing the condition the person is in. They're in the condition of being sad. The little girl was cold, right? I'm not telling you what the girl's doing. I'm telling you her condition. She's in a state of being cold. Okay. Some verbs are known as linking or helping verbs, and they are used together with action verbs. So state of being verbs can sometimes be in here, but there are other ones. Helping verbs can sometimes show whether an action happened in the past or the present or the future. So past, she had jumped at the sound. They were dreaming all night. So hang on, let me just kind of grab my trusty little tool. So had is like a linking or helping verb. So is were. He is leaving school. Is a state of being verb, but it's working as a helping verb right here. I am feeling sick. Now, jumped is still a verb as well. There's actually two verbs here. So if I was doing this for the assignment, I would make sure to underline and to mark both of this. She had jumped. They were dreaming. These are my V's, by the way. I know they look a little bit like check marks, but I'm trying to do a V here. He will be here soon. Now, here is not a verb. Don't underline it, right? The election will be held. Held is a verb. That will work here. Here is a location-y word, right? Held is an actual action. Okay, verb participles. Participles are just words we form from the base of the verb. Participles are often used with helping or linking verbs. And I'm mentioning them because sometimes people think because they've got an ending that it's changed them in some way and they no longer count. Nope, they still count. Present participles are created by adding an ing to the end of a verb. And generally it shows that an action is continuous. The boy was crying hard. Not just one cry, he was crying for a while. She is skipping down the road. Not just one skip, lots of skips. Past participles are usually created by adding ed to the end of verbs to show that an action is completed or that it was a one-time event. He jumped at the sound, like one jump. She laughed at the joke. She wasn't laughing for hours. She just laughed at that one joke, right? Hang on. Helping verbs can also show the probability of an action occurring. These are sometimes referred to as modal verbs. I debated about whether to count that as a fourth category, but they're kind of just a special type of helping verbs, okay? Like could, should, or would. He could run faster if he wanted to. She should cook dinner in an hour. He would help you if you needed it, right? It's not talking about things that are happening right now. It's talking about the things that they think, again, should happen or might happen. Things like can, shall, will, may, might, must, ought to, have to. They're talking about things that might or might not happen. You can also express those in a negative format, like won't, couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, can't, shan't, won't, mayn't, mustn't, oughtn't, needn't. Now, some of those are not very commonly used. I put them there to show them to you. You might see them in older stuff, okay? Shan't is a very kind of old-fashioned, or you might see it in British stuff. Mayn't, very old-fashioned. Oughtn't, oh, I can't barely even say that. Oughtn't, or needn't, I almost never see. Okay, but they do exist. They're legitimate words, so you might see them somewhere. So the most basic sentence has to have a noun or a pronoun along with a verb of some sort. So the dog barks at the mailman. The dog is a noun, mailman's a noun, the dog is doing some barking. Trees are losing their leaves. Trees and leaves are a noun, are and losing are the verbs. Mom went shopping at the store for some groceries. Mom, store, and groceries are all nouns. Went shopping are the verbs. The gray couch was damaged at the store in an accident. Couch, store, and the word accident are all nouns. Was and damaged are the verbs. He was angry at his friend. Okay? So he is not a noun, right? I cannot use that one as a noun. It is a pronoun. It's legitimate to be there. It's fine to be there. But for our assignment, I'm not going to use that because we're not using pronouns. We're just using nouns. Angry, sometimes people will think this is a verb, but it's not. It's an adjective. If I said the angry man, it's describing something. It's not naming something, right? At his friend. So here is my one and only noun. Okay, so here's the actual question. Write 5 sentences of your own that will show your understanding of nouns and verbs. Place an N over words that are nouns in your sentence and a V over words that are verbs. Remember that the nouns are any person, place, thing, or idea. Verbs can be actions, such as jumping, through, or slept. They can describe a state of being, such as am, is, was, or were. They can be helping verbs, like have, had, has, did, do, or will. Be sure to get all of them. Okay. I want to point out the shorter you make your sentence, the easier it will be to find all the nouns and verbs. I consistently find if you write a long sentence, there's a really good chance you're not going to find all the nouns and verbs, which means you will lose marks. Also, you do need to underline these and then mark them, okay? If you just write the sentence but you don't mark them, then I don't know that you actually know how to recognize them. So you have to do that or you lose marks. Usually I just don't even mark that and I can't send it back. So have I found all the nouns? The black cat crossed my path. Where is a noun there? Hang on, I need to grab my selector. Noun, cat is a noun. Anything else? Path, right? The path is a noun. Okay, any verbs? There should be if it's a good sentence. Crossed. All right, that one's done. The moon was bright in the night. All right, what are my nouns first? We've got moon and night. Bright is not a noun, right? It's not naming anything. It's describing how something might look. So was is a verb. Bright is not a verb, right? There's no action happening with bright. Okay. After I watch the movie, I might go to visit my friend at her house. Okay. So I want to show you right away here how this is going to make a whole lot more nouns. Now, I is a pronoun, so I'm not going to use that one. Movie, though, is, there's I again. I'm not going to use that. Friend, though, is, I'm going to put it underneath just so I don't block everything. And house is, sorry, it's kind of there. Let me move some of these V's over. Okay, what about verbs? So watch is a verb. Might go. Might is a verb. And so is go, right? Visit is also a verb. So see how many more there are because I wrote a longer sentence. The longer a sentence you write, the more likely it is you're going to miss some. It's just the case, right? So the success criteria. This is kind of how I'm going to be marking this. I think I've changed this to 10 marks. If you correctly identify all the nouns in each of your 5 sentences, and each sentence must have at least one noun, so that's a half mark per sentence. So that is a possible 2.5 marks. Sorry, I write terribly with a cursor. Correctly identified all the verbs in each of your sentences. That is another possible 2.5 marks. I have not incorrectly identified pronouns as a noun. I will dock you a half mark every time you do that. Any nouns or verbs that are not identified cause you to lose a quarter mark for that sentence. And the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes what will happen is, hang on, let me show you what I mean. I'll get people who will do something like this. They just start marking everything. Like, oh, yep, movie, yep, I think what's happening is they're not sure. So they just decide to mark like almost everything. But when you're doing that, that tells me you didn't really understand because you marked everything or marked a bunch of things. So once that happens, for each one of those mistakes, I take away marks. Okay? So it kind of is a way to discourage guessing. All right? So quickly, you're going to mark with me and tell me, did I do it right or wrong, and how many marks would I get? Susan went to the store. Well, Susan and store are correct. So those are my nouns. All my nouns are good. And went is also good. Okay. So that would be 1 mark for that sentence. The mountain was fun to climb. All right. Sorry, I'm going to just kind of mountain, yes. And there's no other nouns. So that's correct. Was fun to climb. Fun is not a verb, but climb is. So I missed climb. Uh-oh. So I got one of them, but then I had a mistake as well. So this is kind of being difficult here. I got one, but then I also got a mistake. So what I said was I would take away a quarter mark. So for that one, you didn't get 1 whole mark. Instead, what you got was, sorry. Oh, hang on. 0. Oh, why is it not doing it here? Try that. Okay. 0.75. All right, I'm just going to stick to my script here. My dog is racing toward the lake. Dog is correct, but I forgot the word lake. So that one is a mistake. Is racing? Yep, those are both right. All right, so I got 1 full mark for my verbs, but I lost a mark for my nouns. So I'm going to get a 0.75 for that. Dryden is a good place to shop. So Dryden is a noun. Yep. Shop is a noun. Yep. You know another one we forgot though here? Place is a noun. And look, she didn't mark any verbs. Okay, there's no way to have a sentence without any verbs. So there's no verbs plus the nouns. You're missing one. So, looks like I can get, let me see here, 0.5. Is that correct? I think it's 0.5. Pencil, he threw it. Okay, that one's wrong. That one's wrong. I forgot threw. I haven't had a chance to mark all this, but you can see how you're losing marks. Keep your sentences short, otherwise you just won't get through it. We will get to the rest of this tomorrow. I apologize I didn't get through it. So we just did key question 3 today. Take care, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.